Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club. Today I'm going to be talking through my plans for HRCYED 3.0. If you have been watching my channel before, you'll know that I am already participating in a lot of reading challenges. I'm doing a few that are like year-long 2026 challenges, and then I also decided to try the Our Fantasy bingo board April 1st and then a year from there. Now I'm going to add HRCYED to that, and if you don't know what HRCYED is, it is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, which is created and hosted by Stephanie or Q at QWERTY, and it's the third year running. And I saw the first announcement video 2 years ago. I thought it was a fantastic concept and like very well created and all of that, but it was way too many books compared to like the number of books that I read in a year. And I think that the first year there was also like the series staircase and things, like you had to read one duology and like one series with 3 books and 4 books and 5 books and so on. And like I am lucky if I finish one series, like a short series. I think last year the theme was diversity, or maybe that was the first year as well. Like that diversity is always sort of encouraged in this challenge, which is fantastic. But I am already hosting my own diversity book bingo, and so I felt like I didn't need to add another one. This year I decided to watch the announcement video just for fun, just because, you know, everybody's excited about it, and I wanted to see what this year's challenge was going to look like. So I watched the announcement, and the theme for this challenge this year is customization, and so I was like, okay, say more. I also realized that like the series staircase and all of those things are gone, and like with the customization, and I don't know, I've heard there might be some like monthly things that you can do to sort of get bonuses and like maybe sort of scrap some of the prompts and things like that. And so I thought, if I can customize this a tiny little bit and like do it my own way, I think I might be able to do it, because at this point in the year, I have read, I think, 38 books. If I double that, that's about 75 books. And if I can read 75 books in a year, I could do HRCYED with 75 books as long as I like double up on every single book. Like if I use every single book that I read for HRCYED, and I also use every single book that I read for 2 prompts on HRCYED. I might not complete it, you know, fully, but I think my odds are decent. I don't know. I think the prompts are fun, and I just want to be a part of the challenge. I've tried to use as many books as possible that I own and like that I have on my want to read lists already. There are a few books that I have added in just to fill prompts that I might not be super interested in reading, but like I might find other things throughout the year, and the ones that I have put in, you know, as like necessary pains, are pretty short for the most part. Like I mentioned, I'm also doing a bunch of other reading challenges, so that has been another layer to add into this when choosing my books. Like I will prioritize the books that also fulfill prompts on the other challenges that I'm doing, so that every single book that I read is gonna do double, triple, a lot of duties. For this video, I'm going to go through all of the prompts and the books that I have picked out for that. If I have them physically, I will try to show them. I'm going to follow the order of the log tab in the HRCYED Google Sheet. So if you want to like follow along or something, I don't know. I just needed some way to structure this video for myself, so that's the one we're going with. If you're interested in knowing more about the challenge, I suggest you watch QWERTY's announcement video, where she goes through all of the prompts and what they mean and how to do it all. But let's start with the first prompt, which is choose your party, and this is a D&D reference, which I am not familiar with at all. I have just gone off the like examples that were listed and what they might mean. The first book that I have chosen is 3 Assassins by Kotaro Isaka, which will count as a rogue because it's about assassins. And then I have Sycorax by Nydia Hetherington, which is about a seer, sage, sorceress, so I'm going to count this for sorcerer. This is a book that I got recently, and I will talk about this more in an upcoming prompt, as is probably true for most of these books. Like you'll see most of these books twice. Next, I have Mother Naked by Glenn James Brown. He comes and tells stories and entertains the crowds at court. So I think that's what a bard does. And so I'm counting this for bard. Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. I'm counting for Ranger. And then I have You Were Never Here by Jonathan Ames. This is about a man who is a former FBI agent and Marine. And so I figured that would fit the military example for Paladin. So that's what I'll be counting that for. And this one is a very short thriller. The next prompt is periodic table of elements. So you have to read 5 books with elements in the title, and I think this is my least favorite prompt out of the whole challenge. There are not a lot of books that I want to read that have any kind of element in the title, but I'm gonna do my best. Also, I don't have any of these books and I forgot to look up all of the titles and authors, but I'm gonna put the covers on the screen and you can read all of that there. First of all, I'm going to want one with gold and one with silver because I'm struggling with those for the color prompt that's gonna be coming up later. For gold, I found this like middle grade book, Jabin and the Golden Torch or something like that, which is available at my library. So I might try that one. If it doesn't work out, I will try something else. For silver, I'm thinking Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. I've tried that on audio. It was recommended to me by Pat at Book Chat with Pat as a book that I might like. And so I want to give it another shot, but I think I'm gonna need like a physical copy. The tone on the audiobook was very kind of like nonchalant and almost like arrogant, and maybe the writing is a little bit like that, but I didn't like the narration. So I'm gonna try to get a physical copy of that. And then I have Helium, and I think that might be a poetry collection. I think it's pretty short. I don't know who the author is in this very moment. It's not something that I would have picked up if not for this challenge, which is kind of the point of the challenge anyway, but like, you know what I mean. I also have a short story called Oxygen on audiobook, and I think this one doesn't have the best ratings, but it's only like 30 minutes on audio, and so I figured I will give it a go and then I can cross off this prompt. And then my final element is going to be iron, and for this I have a book that I'm actually excited about, The Adventures of China Iron by Gabriela Cabezon Camara. And I haven't read anything from her before, but I do have We Are Green and Trembling by the same author, and so I'm hoping that I will enjoy this and that I will then be excited to read The Adventures of China Iron. Moving on to familial terms. For this I have again Mother Naked by Glenn James Brown because it has the word mother in the title. Sky Daddy by Kate Folk because it has the word daddy in the title. Mio Min Mio by Astrid Lindgren, which in English is called Mio My Son. So I'm counting the English title for that. And this is like a middle grade fantasy. I also have the Swedish edition of My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Fredrik Backman, and I think I have this on audio as well. That has the word grandmother in the title. And then I have The Second Husband by Kate White on audiobook, which is a thriller. We also need to read 5 books from different regions of the world, and for this one I have picked One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad. I think this sort of covers both the Swana region and North America, like the US. There's some correlation between those two areas and stuff like that, so that covers those. Project V by Park Seo-leon, which is a South Korean novel, so this covers East Asia. This is about a girl who enters some kind of a robot competition, and that sounds like fun. The Summer Book by Tove Jansson, which is set on an island off of Finland, I think, like the Finnish coast, somewhere between Finland and Sweden, so this would count for the Nordic region. And then I have The Grapevine by Kate Kemp, which is set in Australia. And then I'm also waiting for a copy of Broken People's Playlist by, I forget the author's name, but I will have that up on the screen. This is set in Nigeria, so that would be West Africa. Next we have The Food Pyramid, which is to read books with different kinds of food on the cover, and like not just different foods, but different food groups. So first up I have The Night of Baba Yaga by Akira Otani. This has a vending machine on the cover, which is full of drinks, so that would be the food group for that. And this is a Japanese thriller. The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin has a big apple on the cover, and this is a sort of contemporary, I guess also thriller set in Scotland. The Lilac People by Milo Todd is historical fiction about trans people during the Second World War and after, and this has grains on the cover. Gunk by Saba Sams, which has a big egg on the cover, so I'm counting that as like a animal protein, I guess. And then for the fifth book, I am thinking either Honey by Imani Thompson, which has like honey dripping off of her arm, or Everyone is Lying to You by, that author's name has also escaped me, but on one of the editions at least, the woman on the cover is holding a big pie, and so either one of those could count as like sweets or desserts. The road trip prompt doesn't have to be set in the US, but I'm going to choose books that are set in the US in states that are not New York or California. And so I'm going to be starting my road trip in Connecticut, which is close to New York, but it's not New York. And for that, I have The Second Husband by Kate White, which is a thriller. Then I will be driving down the coast to North Carolina, where we have House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which is sort of a cozy horror. Next, I have The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philyaw, which I think is set in Florida. In Mississippi, we have They Bloom at Night by Trang Tan Tran, which is a horror novel. I think it might be young adult. And then finally in Arkansas, I have Hours by Philip B. Williams. I keep adding this to reading challenges because, you know, the more prompts I can fulfill with this book, the better, so that I finally read it. Next we have Second Chances and Hidden Gems. And for this I have 5 books picked out. They might change. I mean, all of the books that I have planned might be swapped out for something else as the year goes along. But yeah, this one is a little bit tentative, I guess. The first one is not. This first one is Hours by Philip B. Williams, and again, I have tried reading this twice, and I'm trying again this summer. I have nothing against this novel, it just seems a little bit heavy, and the language is a little bit like poetic, and so, I don't know, I have just not managed to get very far. My bookmark is on page 25 out of like 500, so yeah, this one is getting a third chance. Next I have a book that I found randomly, so this will be my random find, and that is You Were Never Really Here by Jonathan Ames, which is again a short thriller that I just found in a bookstore in Stockholm. I will leave a link to that vlog where I bought this. And then I have Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. And again, I don't have a problem with this one, but I have started it before and not made it very far. I just had other books, I think, so this one sort of got pushed back, and I didn't pick it back up again, so I am going to. And this is a mystery set in Poland. I'm also putting Oxygen here, that short story that I'm going to use for my periodic table of elements. It's rated kind of low on Goodreads, so I'm using it for that prompt within this prompt. And then my final pick is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, mostly because I need a book with the word two in the title, and I have read One Dark Window before, and like it was fine, but I was never motivated enough to pick up the second book. But I figured I might give that a second chance and try it. I never even started Two Twisted Crowns, and everybody says it's the better one of the two, so I'm open to it, but it's definitely one that fits this prompt. The next prompt is Cover Styles, which I think is just to read 4 books with different types of cover art. First up, I have Project V by Park Seo-leon. 3 of my covers are illustrated, but this one is very like maximalist, and it kind of has this like cartoonish vibe to it. And then I have Strange Houses by Uketsu, which has again an illustrated cover, but it's like a floor plan, and it's very minimalistic and only has those 2 colors, the pink and the blue. And then I have Pink Glass Houses by Aisha. I'm gonna be so bad at authors in this video, I apologize. But this cover is also illustrated, and it also has very similar colors to the other ones I've mentioned. But this one has like a flat sort of 2D landscape view, and yeah, I really think that's a pretty cover. I think that's a really pretty cover, is what I was trying to say. And then I have Penance by Kanai Minato, which has this photo on it. So this one is definitely the most different out of the four. And again, these might change. I just sort of put 4 covers here that I have picked for other things that look different. So we'll see. And then moving down on the log sheet, I am again using Penance by Kanai Minato for the Backlist author prompt. I think this was published after Confessions, which is the other book that I have read by this author, but I also think that she has come out with another book since this one was published. And then I have Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I haven't read anything from this author, but I would like to, and I know this isn't her latest release, so this also counts. Paula Hawkins is another author that I would like to read from, and I have, I think, 3 books from her, but I'm going to pick this one for reasons. Another thriller that I would like to try is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I have never read anything by this author either, and would like to try. It's a science fiction thriller. And then I have The Axeman's Carnival by Catherine Chidgey. I have read Pet and The Book of Guilt by this author, and I would like to read more from her backlist. And this is the book that I have on my shelves. It is very hot in here, but we're gonna carry on. Next we have Titular Counting, which is all about counting the number of words in the title. I have Gunk by Saba Sams for a 1-word title. And this is a contemporary fiction about sort of motherhood, I think, and relationships and stuff. For 2 words in the title, I'm counting Strange Buildings by Uketsu, which is a Japanese horror mystery. For 3 words in the title, I'm counting The Thorn Queen by Sasha Payton Smith, which is the sequel to The Rose Bargain. This is a book that I'm currently reading, and maybe I forgot to mention, but I'm starting this from midsummer. I'm not waiting to July 7th when this challenge officially starts. I'm going with the choose your own start date version, and I figured, you know, since I am Swedish and I want to count everything that I am reading right now for this challenge, I'm going with that date. Technically, like the summer solstice is when I decided to start this challenge. I'm gonna keep track of that. You don't need to worry about that. For 4 words in the title, I have Your Shadow Half Remains by Sunny Moraine. This is a horror book that is not very long. 5 words, I have The Ballad of Jacot de la Haye by Bryony Cameron, which is historical based on a legend, I think. I don't think it's fantasy. No, it's just a pirate-filled adventure on the high seas about a female pirate. 6 words in the title, I have The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Felia, which I think is sort of a short story collection about these ladies and their lives. 7 words, I have The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwent. For 8 words in the title, I have How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, which is a sort of rom-com thriller that I have on audiobook. For 9 words, I have Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. And then for a 10-word title, I'm gonna go with And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Fredrik Backman, which is a short story that I think is going to make me cry a lot, but it has 10 words in the title. It's a short book, and it's one that I already want to read, so that's the one that we're going with. For the Shiritori Prompt, you need to make a chain of 5 books where each book starts with the letter that the previous one ended on. I have a bunch of different like variations of this that I could do, and like it depends on what books need to fulfill 2 other prompts and like which ones can be used for this. But I think I have a chain that I'm happy with. And I've also tried to pick books that I want to read quite soon because this prompt stresses me out. I want to get it over and done with. We're starting with The Bitch by Pilar Quintana, which is literary fiction, I think, set in Colombia. And so this one ends on an H. which takes us to Homebound by Portia Elon, which is a science fiction story, and it ends with a D. That takes us to Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi, which is contemporary fiction set in Japan about this woman who I think fakes a pregnancy. This one seems very easy to read and it's not very long, so again, excellent choice. This one also ends on a D, so that takes us to Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens, which is about a pastor and his family, and specifically like the women around him and his son. And I think the son does something bad, and we see how the community reacts to that. That's also set in sort of the American South somewhere. Dominion ends on an N, and for this I'm going to count the Night of Baba Yaga, which technically starts with a T, but I'm not going to count the. So that's what we're going with, and I think that's a manageable stack, and these are all books that I'm really excited to get to. So hopefully I can knock this one out pretty soon and like have this done by the fall, and then that's gonna ease my anxiety about this prompt. Next we have the Mother Nature / weather prompt, where we need to pick 6 books with different kinds of weather or like Mother Nature events on the cover. First up I have The Hymn to Dionysus by Natasha Pulley, which has a big sun on the cover, and so this will represent sunny weather. This is a Greek mythology retelling. Dive Beyond Eternity by Valeria Salt. This one has Northern Lights on the cover, and it's a sci-fi mystery thriller book where they go on a submarine and there's something about the Second World War, and yeah, it sounds very intriguing. This one was sent to me by the author. Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell has lightning bolts on the cover, so that's what that's gonna be representing. This is a sci-fi novel where the white people in the US, I think, or like North America, have all just like walked into a body of water, so there are no white people left, and we follow a black man after that event has occurred, which sounds very interesting. I have Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, who is an Australian author, but this is set in Iceland, and this has a very cloudy sky on the cover, so that's what that's gonna count for. I think this might also count for like rain or storm or something, because yeah, there are little dots on there that I would say is rain. I also have Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wawishig Rice, which is a horror novel by an indigenous author, and this has a lot of snow on the cover. I'm not sure it's like actively snowing on the cover, but it definitely has snowed a lot, and I think the plot is also about like this community being cut off from the rest of the world because of this snowstorm. And then I also have Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which has fog on the cover. Let's squeeze in a couple of short prompts here. The first one is the Character Becomes Author prompt, which only requires 3 books, but you have to link them so that the character name becomes the author name of the next book. And this one took me second to wrap my head around, but I think I have at least one option. I think this one is really tricky because like I love reading more diversely as I'm doing now, and like having a lot of books from different countries on my shelves, but it also makes it kind of difficult to find books where the character names like correspond to an author name. If you have like Hiromi and then you have Jaili, like they're not gonna match. But I think I found at least one, chain that hopefully works well enough. The first book then is A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick, which is a classic science fiction book. I have seen the movie and I love that, so I want to try the book. I've also read another book by this author, but that's neither here nor there. The main character in this book, or like one of the main characters, is called Bob. So I figured my next book then would be 4 Squares by Bobby Finger. This is about older gay men, I think. I can't remember if they're like living in some sort of a home or if it's just like apartments in the same building or something. I don't know if they're coming out at a later age, or they're finding love, or they're dating, or something along those lines. That's a book that I don't have and I don't have access to, so I would need to buy that book. I have requested for my library to purchase it, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But anyways, one of the main characters in that book is called Artie. So then my next read would be Mouse by Art Spiegelman, because Artie, Art, you know, it's like Bob and Bobby. They're the same. That is a historical graphic novel about the Second World War. The next little prompt is a book within a book prompt, and this one, I think I'm just gonna have to wait and see what that might be. I'm hoping that Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is mentioned in some book somewhere, because that is a book that I want to read, and it's being a classic, the chances of it being mentioned are higher. I found a book called The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams that might be an option. This mentions a few different classics that I would like to read, most probably To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee or Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The Reading List won one of the Goodreads Choice Awards a few years ago, and I have it on audiobook, so yeah, this might be an option. Let's do the other number and title prompt, which is numerical titles. So the actual number has to be in the title. And we're going 1 to 10 plus another number. I have a couple of options for the number 1. One of them is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've enjoyed this author before, but I'm also hoping to use One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This for another prompt on the challenge, like I mentioned. So I'm going to be counting that one, hopefully, for the number 1. And then for 2, I'm going with Two Twisted Crowns. I'm not super excited about reading that, but you know, it fits a couple of prompts, so you know. For 3, I have a couple of different options again. I have 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swan, which is a mystery where the sheep are trying to solve the murder of their shepherd. But I think I'm going to go with 3 Assassins by Kotaro Isaka. I'm more in the mood for this one at the moment, and I'm using this for another prompt, so that's what I'm going to go with. For 4, I have 4 Squares by Bobby Finger. For 5, I am going with the 5 Orange Pips by, what's his face? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which is a very short mystery that I have access to on audio. For 6, I'm gonna go with 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is a fantasy duology, like the first book in a duology that I have been wanting to try for a long time, and so we'll add this onto here and see if that helps. For 7, I have Red River 7 by A.J. Ryan, which is a thriller about a man who wakes up on a boat at sea with no memory of who or where he is. He is not alone. There are 6 others, each with a unique set of skills. None of them can remember their names. All of them possess a gun. I think that sounds nice. For the number 8, I'm gonna go with The Eights by Joanna Miller. I think I have access to this from my library, and I also think I can purchase the audiobook on my audiobook app. That is historical fiction about these girls in England, and they go to university, and there's, you know, misogyny and things like that. And I'm not super in the mood for that right now, but I might be throughout the year, and that's been on my radar, so I'm putting that on there, and we'll see how that goes. For number 9, I requested for my library to purchase a book called 9 Lives by Catherine Steadman. This is a thriller, and it sounded fun because it is about neighbors, and this woman sees a crime being committed, I think, and then she starts like snooping around and using like a cat camera to snoop on her neighbors and find out what happened, and that just sounded like a fun time. Hopefully my library will come through and buy a couple of books for me. And then for 10, I have How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, which I have on audiobook, and that is a rom-com slasher, I think. And then for my 11th number, which can be anything that isn't 1 to 10, I'm gonna go with Woman at Point Zero by Nawal El Sadawi, which is literary fiction set in Egypt, and yeah, it has 0 in the title. The sun has just like come around the corner, and so it's hitting my window now, and so it's getting hotter and hotter by the second in here. But moving on to a rainbow of words, which includes the colors of the rainbow and a couple of other ones, which I'm not happy about, but the first one is for red, and that is Red River 7 by A.J. Ryan. For orange, I have The 5 Orange Pips by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. For yellow, I have Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling. She has written something else that I was kind of intrigued by, Starving Saints. Starving, I don't know, horror or like historical creepy, I'm not really sure, but it has the word yellow in it, so I'm adding that onto there. I also have The Yellow Wife as an option. We'll see what I'm in the mood for and if anything else comes up. I've already read Yellow Face and The Yellow Wallpaper. For green, I have We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, which I'm hoping to get to really soon. For blue, I have another option on audiobook called Blue Midnight or Midnight Blue. I'm not really sure, which I think is like historical fiction. But again, I do have The Blue Hour by Paula Hawkins on my shelves, and so I figured I should at least give this one a try. I haven't heard the best things about this book. I'm not really sure what's wrong with it, but like a lot of people online and like, you know, reviews that I've seen don't seem to like this one. I don't think it has the best ratings. I could probably use this for the second chances and hidden gems prompt, but yeah, it has the word blue in the title, and I'm willing to give it a try, and then, you know, we'll see. It is a little bit chunky, but like at least the text is big, so yeah, we'll see. Purple is the bane of my existence right now. There are a couple of books that I could read that I'm not really interested in. I have a couple of random options on audiobook, but they're not like screaming out to me, but I guess I'm like gonna give them a try and then we'll see. I'm hoping there will be something throughout the year when I get to scratch a prompt, and this one will probably be the first one to go if I can do that. For pink, I'm going with Pink Glass Houses, again by Aisha someone. I think it's a thriller, and I think it's set in like Florida or somewhere along those lines. Rich people and drama and something like that. I did start that on audio once before, but it's like a bunch of different narrators, and one of them is the person who narrated Yellowface, and I really did not get along with that narrator. But like that's only for one of the characters in the book, and so, or like the POVs, so I'm gonna give that another chance, and hopefully I can get through it and enjoy it and count it for HRCYED. For the color white, I have White Moss by Anna Nerkagi, which is translated from the Russian, and this is an indigenous author in literary fiction, I would say, and one that I am really excited to get to. It's not really the season for this right now for me, so I'll probably read this, you know, in the winter time. The book with the word black in it is going to be Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I feel like it's a feminist fun horror that I've had for about a year now, and I'm really intrigued by this one. I've heard good things about this author, and so I'm excited to read this, probably in the fall. And then we have again gold and silver, which are stupid and I don't like them. Again, I have Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, so hopefully I will enjoy that. And then something for gold, maybe the Jabin and the Golden Torch book, or I will find something else. Let's move on to the animals prompt. So for this prompt, we need 6 books with different types of animals on the cover. For birds, I'm gonna go with Your Shadow Half Remains by Sunny Moraine, which is sort of a half bird slash person morphing into some kind of animal, but yeah, that's a bird. And then I'm gonna be using The Hounding by Senabi Purvis when I get my copy of that. That one has dogs on the cover. In September, Lucy Jane Wood is coming out with her 3rd book called Disenchanted, and of course there is a cat on that cover, as always. I am also going to use Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens because that has the snake. That better be the cover that I get, because that's one that I have been waiting very patiently for. So yeah, I'm going to be really mad if that's not the cover. But anyways, moving on. I'm also hoping to get to Of Cattle and Men by Ana Paula Maya. This has a cow in the X there. And then on The Grapevine by Kate Kemp, there is an ant crawling on the telephone. Moving on to different biomes and landscapes on the cover, I think mainly, but also like in the story. First up, I have Light Seekers by Femi Kayode. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but like the Nigerian plains. The Butcher of the Forest by Primi Mohammed has a forest on the cover. The Summer Book by Tove Jansson has an island on the cover and like, what's it called, like archipelago kind of landscape. Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabishig Rice has this snowy landscape. I think this is set in Canada or Alaska or something. And then I have We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, which has this sort of rainforest on the cover. And then finally I'm going with The Hounding by Xena B. Purvis, which has like an English countryside kind of landscape. I feel like a few of these are similar in that they are, you know, just flat, but I think that the English countryside is very different from the Nigerian countryside and very different from like the North American countryside, like plains. I'm counting those as different. I'm pretty sure they have different sort of plants, different animals, different temperatures, climates, all of that. If I read the Myers or Our Numbered Bones, I might squeeze those in here as well as like wetlands, marshes, that kind of vibe, but these are the ones that I'm going with for now. Oh Lord, won't you buy me? Mercy. Then we have remix. Okay, so for this prompt, it's all about like retellings or like telling a story with a different twist on it or like a different perspective. And you can also like mix these different perspectives and get, you know, unique combinations. This one is one that I have struggled a little bit with because I don't think that like a regular mythology retelling counts. Like it has to be something different. These are the ones that I have picked out because I think these are my only options that I have like on my shelves, but like I do want to read all these. So anyways, the first one is Honeysuckle by Bar Friedman Tell, and it says on the back that this is a loose reimagining of the story of Blodeuwedd from Welsh mythology. And it also says that it's a feminist Frankenstein with flowers. So like I'm thinking it might have some inspiration from both of those, and it's definitely a retelling. I think there's maybe like a gender swap and maybe like added magic. I'm not really sure. It's about someone who falls in love with this like girl who is made up of leaves, but then every fall she, you know, wilts because that's what leaves do. So they have to do something to keep her alive. Fantasy, horror, romantasy, I think. And then I have Orlando by Jacqueline Hartman, which is a retelling of Orlando by Virginia Woolf, but I think this is also a gender swap because, you know, Orlando is about Orlando and this is about Orlando, and you know. And then oh Jesus. Then I have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. This was very kindly sent to me by Melanie at A Dark Corner of the Library, so thank you so much. This is a retelling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth's point of view, or like following her. I am not very familiar with Macbeth at all, but like I know a little bit, and so this is going to be a good pick for this prompt, I think. And then I have Fruit of the Dead by Rachel Lyon, which I have started before. Like the start of the book was very similar to the book that I had just read before it, so I was mixing things up, but I'm still interested in reading this. And this is a contemporary reinvention of the story of Persephone and Demeter. It's contemporary, so it's set in our modern world, and it follows a woman who works at like a summer camp, and then there's one of the dads there, I think, and they start a relationship, and then they move away, and the mother of this young woman, you know, tries to sort of track her daughter down and save her, but we don't know if she needs saving. I'm intrigued by this, and it would work for this prompt, I think. And then we have again Sycorax by Nydia Hetherington, which is a book I got recently, and I think this is inspired by The Tempest by Shakespeare, and like in that play there's a character and his mother is like this old witch that they talk very negatively about, and they talk about how she's like grown into a loop, like she's very like bent over or something. And so the interpretation that the author does is like, well, sounds like she's in a lot of pain, and this author has a chronic illness of some kind, and that is also reflected in this story and like about this witch. Yeah, we're following this woman who is a witch and is dealing with some kind of chronic illness and chronic pain. So this is a retelling with like a side character, like a background character almost, and like taking their story. So I think that fits perfect for this prompt as well. Yeah, like how sweaty am I? Like I feel like my hair is going curly. Okay, let's move on to the HRCYED mashup prompt, which is where you pick a prompt from the first year and one prompt from the second year, and you mash them together and read 5 books. And I decided to mash up 2 prompts. One of them is to read translated books, and the other one is to read books from countries that are not the US, Canada, or the UK. This just goes very well with my diversity book bingo and like my reading my books in general. So if those are too close together, I don't care. I'm gonna go with 5 books that are from different countries and are all translated from different languages. First up, I have A Woman at Point Zero by Nawal El-Sadawi. This is translated from the Arabic by Sherif Hetata. Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi is translated from the Japanese by David Boyd and Lucy North. The Impatient by Jaili Amadou Amal is translated from the French by Emma Ramadan, and this is set in Cameroon. The Wall by Marlene Haushofer is translated by Sean Whiteside, and this counts for Austria. The author is Austrian, and it's set in the Austrian mountains. And then finally I have The Bitch by Pilar Quintana, which is translated from the Spanish by Lisa Dillman, and this is a Colombian novel. The Bitch is about a woman who wants to have children, but they end up getting a puppy, something along those lines. The Wall is about a woman who goes to the Austrian mountains with some other people, but then she wakes up and she's alone and she can't like get through this wall that is surrounding her. The Impatient is about these 3 women in Cameroon who are going to get married or need to share their husbands with another wife, or you know, being married off to someone like a cousin. Diary of a Void is about this woman who is dealing with sexism, I think, in the workplace and somehow ends up faking a pregnancy. And then we have A Woman at Point Zero, which is about a woman who is on death row for the murder of a man. La, 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 la. Moving on to Choose Your Own Curriculum, where we pick books that can be connected somehow to like school subjects. I've decided to include some like university level courses, but like I have taken them, so it counts. First up, we have Offenses by Constance Debré. This is translated from the French, I think, by Jeffrey Zuckerman, and this is about a man who kills an elderly woman for a very small amount of money, and I'm thinking this has to do with criminal justice, but like mainly, you know, how far would we go for people we love, and you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm counting this for an ethics class. I'm also going to try to fit in a couple of nonfiction books. The first one is Why Doing Nothing Can Change Your Life by Dr. Joseph Jebeli. The subtitle is The Brain at Rest, and it just talks about how we need to do nothing every once in a while and just, you know, hang out and maybe chat or like look into nature and just be and not have constant, you know, stimulation from all the things and be overwhelmed by information as we are now, or entertained. You know, we need to be a bit more calm and a bit more bored and do nothing, and that just speaks to me. I'm counting this for like a neuroscience class. Next I have social studies, and for this I'm gonna count Herlands by Megha Mohan, Lessons from Societies Where Women Make the Rules. It says, through extensive research and exclusive first-hand reporting, and inspired by her great-grandmother's own matrilineal community in South India, Mohan introduces us to fascinating and diverse groups of women, from the controversial feminist online trolls of South Korea to older women co-housing in Paris and London and the rain queens of South Africa. This is a truly global look at a women's community. I think that sounds fantastic, and yeah, very intrigued. I'm going to count The Eights by Joanna Miller for history class. I'm also going to count Disenchanted by Lucy Wood for like an English literature class, because the main character in the book is working at a library. I think she's a librarian, and there are lots of books on the cover. So yeah, I feel like that fits, and it's not too difficult of a read. Moving on to the birthday prompt, which is all about you and when you were born and you and yourself and you. First up, I'm gonna use Helium again. I think it's a poetry collection that I'm using for the periodic table of elements prompt, and I'm gonna use this on here because the cover is turquoise and my stone is turquoise. And then for a book published in my birth month of December, I'm gonna go with Strange Buildings by Uketsu. My zodiac sign is a Sagittarius, and so I'm gonna go with Atalanta by Jennifer Saint, because she is obviously a Sagittarius as well. My Chinese zodiac sign is apparently a fire rabbit, which I thought was very fitting, and they are apparently impatient. Like, one of their traits is that they are impatient, and so for that I'm gonna count The Impatient by Jaile Amadou Amal. The flowers I could choose from were either holly or narcissus, and I'm gonna go with holly, and I'm gonna go with a book by Holly Bourne called How Do You Like Me Now? This is about a woman who appears to be thriving on social media, but isn't really. I think this is from like 2018 or something like that, so it might not be the most up-to-date in terms of social media and all of that, but I am interested in this story, and you know, her name is Holly. My birth tree is an elder tree, and so for that I'm gonna go with Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think it's like a cozy sci-fi, I'm not really sure. It sounds good enough. It counts for a couple of prompts, so that's what I'm gonna go with for this. And then the final prompt on this birthday list of prompts is to read a book that's connected to the meaning of your name, and my name is Ellen, and that means light, or like a torch, like a, you know, fire or some kind. And so for this, I think I'm gonna go with Light Seekers by Femi Kayode, which is a Nigerian thriller book that I am about halfway through already, so I feel like that's promising. This is about an investigative psychologist, and he is tasked by the father of one of 3 students who were tortured and burned. They were accused of robbery, and so there was a mob and these young men were killed, and this investigative journalist is trying to figure out what happened. Moving on to the pocket monsters. Again, I'm not very familiar with these, but there was a list and I've just done my best. The first one is one that I heard about from Carrie at Carrie Books, and it just sounded like a lot of fun. It's like an interactive novel where you can choose different actions in the story, and you get different stories and different endings. And that is The Waiter by Kwan An Tan. It's a speculative novel where people are working as waiters. Richer people, I guess, hire them to wait for stuff, and you are one of these waiters, and you can sort of choose what to do in different situations. It's very short, and I think there are like 11 different outcomes in this book, and it just sounds like a really fun time. And since these persons on the cover are underground, and also it says that the city is being swallowed into the ground, I figured this would be a ground-based pocket monster. Next, I have The Thorn Queen, again by Sasha Payton Smith, which I'm currently in the middle of. And this story has a lot of fairies in it, so I figured it would count for a fairy type pocket monster. Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. It's about a woman who is attracted to airplanes and wants to marry one of them by crashing with it. And so this is obviously a flying type. A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick, I think could work for dark, electric, and bug type of pocket monster. This is a science fiction novel, or like a speculative novel, where there's a scanner who sees everything, and like the opening scene of this story is a man who's in the shower and is trying to like shower all of the bugs off of him, and there's some other stuff. Yeah, I think this could be a number of different ones. And then I also am going to count They Bloom at Night by Trang Tan Tran. That's a tongue twister, for a water type pocket monster. Mercy changed after the hurricane hit. A red algae bloom took over the town, releasing mutated wildlife into the ever-rising waters. And also like the cover. And then we are up to my second to least favorite prompt on this challenge, and that is the Anthology Prompt. And so you're supposed to read an anthology of at least 6 different authors, and then you read a book by 6 different authors. I don't think I'm going to manage that like perfectly, but I'm gonna do something that works for me, hopefully. I am really interested in reading more from Charco Press, which is a small press focusing on Latin American authors. I already have a few books on my TBR that I want to read, and there is an anthology from that press with those authors. So I might read that or I'm just gonna use that as my like stepping off point. I'm not really sure. The anthology is called La Lucha, which is Spanish for like the fight or the struggle, and it's feminist essays about like Latin American feminist issues. One of the contributors to this anthology is Claudia Pinheiro, and I recently read Elena Knows, and I also have Cathedrals on my TBR, and I really want to read this. And I also have Ana Paula Maya's Of Cattle and Men, and I also have pre-ordered her upcoming release, which is Bury Your Dead. That's 2 books from the same author, and I'm not sure if she is in the anthology, but like she's from the same press. There's also Not a River by Selva Almada. Also The Adventures of China Iron by Gabriela Cabezon Camara. She's a contributor. And then I need to find a 6th book. This is a bit of a stretch, but like I also am not gonna read a whole anthology, and like 6 books, like it's too much of a thing for it to not work for me. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm gonna do, and I think that's still in the spirit of reading diversely and supporting smaller presses and all of that, which I know this challenge stands for. And also I'm not like submitting my answers, and I'm not, you know, winning $1 million doing this challenge. So I'm going to customize it to work for me. So we are up to the final prompt, which of course has like 12 sub prompts. The prompt category is old secret prompts. So these are prompts that I think came out like once a month last year. So the first secret prompt is to read an entire book outside, and I'm hoping I will be able to do that with The Waiter. It's very short and it's interactive, and it seemed like it was a pretty quick read, and you know, it's the summertime, so I think I should be able to accomplish that. Next, I have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I would count this for a pun in the title, which, you know, people are like, it's not a pun if it doesn't blah blah blah. I don't care. This is punny enough for me. It has a dual meaning, and you're wondering like what the meaning of it is. A house with good bones sounds very positive if you're buying a house. If the meaning is that there are bones in the house, it's not as positive anymore. So I think that counts. A book that I missed reading in my childhood is Mio min Mio, or Mio my son, by Astrid Lindgren. Classic Swedish children's book that I never read. I've loved the Brothers Lionheart and, you know, Ronja Rövardotter and Pippi Longstocking and all of that, but I haven't read this one, and so I'm going to. Next, I have Strange Houses by Uketsu, which is going to be my doom scroll pick. I scrolled on my YouTube feed and that was the first book cover that I came across. It might not have been like the very first that I saw, but the first one that I want to read. And then I have The Butcher of the Forest by Primi Mohammed for the prompt, where the last name of the author is also a first name, and Mohammed is also a first name. For the crafting prompt, you can choose a book with crafting on the cover, or you can listen to an entire book while you're crafting, and so I figured I would do a short one, and I will listen to Mestra by Madeline Miller, which is her new short story that's coming out this fall. I think it's like 80 pages or so, like the physical copy, so it shouldn't be too long, like maybe an hour and a half, something like that. The Ballad of Jacot de la Haye by Bryony Cameron has both the first and last name of the main character in the title, so I'm going with that. Dive Beyond Eternity by Valeria Salt. I think I'm using for the I'll get around to it later prompt because it's a book that I keep pushing off, but I really do want to read, so I'm putting it on this prompt for this challenge. A book with duplicate titles is The Wall by Marlene Haushofer. There are other books with this same title, and so that would count for this prompt. The most recent acquisition, for now I have put A Broken People's Playlist, because when I was putting this plan together, that was the book that I had most recently ordered, and so I'm going with that. And then there's one prompt that I forgot about all of the colors in someone's coat, and I don't know what that is about, but one of the colors is lilac, and so for that I'm gonna go with The Lilac People by Milo Todd. And then for the prompt to read a book with movement on the cover, I'm gonna go with Offenses by Constance Debris, because there's clearly some shaking of the head or something going on this cover. Those are all of the prompts. I hope I didn't miss anything. I need to like go cool down and have some water and maybe a snack, and I hope that you are keeping yourself hydrated and fed and at a decent temperature. Let me know if you are also doing HRCYED and if there's any specific prompt that you're struggling with that maybe I can help out with, or other people in the comments can help out with, or if you're just like doing some other version, like there are different versions. There's the kids version and the ain't nobody got time for that version. I'm just doing the plain old version, but like with a little bit of a customization, as I just told you. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.